Subject: Cooper, J. Involvement: indirect. Material evidence: suspect. Likelihood: low. Below is the statement provided by J. Cooper. His statement and a list of materials signed by an individual who is deemed a possible indeterminate are below. The family has produced further materials related to indeterminates. We will be examining them all in order of least likely to most likely, linked to an actual event of an indeterminate. Our current assessment: indeterminate event or erasure of an individual has an unsubstantiated material component that may require further investigation. Cooper's statement is as follows. This story has haunted my family for 4 generations. I visited my great-grandparents frequently as a small boy. My great-grandfather was a tall man with the sense of humor of a teenager. We genuinely connected despite our obvious age gap. One day my grandparents left me with him, and the air was different in his house that day. He was more somber and sat and appeared almost callous in his rocking chair. I was young, but I knew he was disturbed by something, and I just had to know what. So, without thinking, I asked him, rather bluntly, "What's got you upset, old man?" I usually called him old man as a joke, and some part of me was hoping the verbal jab would lighten the mood. Thankfully, this did seem to pull him from whatever mental ocean he was pondering. He grinned at me and said in a rather low voice, "Would you think I was crazy if I told you a ghost story?" This was a weird and uncharacteristic thing for him, so I stepped back. Some part of me thought that he was beginning to slip mentally, even though he had never shown any other signs. "No, I wouldn't think you were crazy." I wasn't actually sure if I believed this, to be honest. Part of me was scared that he might do something. Something about older people going insane scared me a lot as a kid. I remember being freaked out by a Ben 10 episode with old people attacking the main characters. He smirked at me and told me this. "I grew up with a man named Jeremiah. He was my neighbor in the house beside this one when I was just a kid. We played together when we were very young, and we were best friends throughout high school. I joined the military, he went to college. However, when I finally came home after being stationed in Japan, we reconnected. One weekend, we decided to go hunting together. We planned the trip and were packed up the night before. When that morning came for us to leave, something in my stomach felt off. I felt nervous, and I wasn't really sure why. The whole time driving, I couldn't settle my nerves and nearly called the whole thing off, thinking I had some kind of a breakdown. However, I was finally able to swallow it and got us where we needed to go. I parked my truck and Jeremiah parked next to me. He mentioned he was having some kind of motion sickness on the way to our spot. I mentioned I had similar symptoms and we shrugged it off, thinking maybe it was the road. Walking through the woods, I came across a clearing I didn't remember when I originally set up the spot. The air was light and it felt like every instinct I had told me to turn around and go home. I pushed through, and about halfway through the clearing, I realized I heard footsteps and breathing right behind me. The wind seemed to spiral around me. The clearing at my nerves finally broke, and I wanted to leave. I told Jeremiah to step back a bit, but when I looked back, he wasn't there. I called for him a bit and used the whistle I packed, hoping he would hear it and say something or whistle back. When he didn't, I ran towards where we parked until I made it back to my truck. His truck was gone, and I immediately got upset that he just dumped me in the woods without saying anything, and went to his house to figure out what was going on. But when I got there, his parents were there. They passed the house on to him when he turned 20 and hadn't lived there in a few years. When I asked them about when Jeremiah would be back, they looked at me shocked, saying they never had a son named Jeremiah. I was very confused by this and eventually started asking everyone else. Nobody ever heard of him. He wasn't in our yearbooks or school pictures. The only evidence that he ever existed was the list of things we packed for the camping trip that I still have. It's worn and old now, but it has his name and what he was expected to bring. He looked a little downtrodden when he finished the story, and I didn't really know what to say. I remember hugging him and hoping he wasn't losing it. When my grandfather picked me up to go back home, since I was raised by my grandparents, I told my grandfather that his dad might need some more help being watched after. And I started to tell him the story that I was told before he cut me off. He isn't beginning to lose it just yet. He's been telling that story with the paper in his wallet since I was a kid. He told it to your dad when he was growing up as well. I believe him, or at least that he believes it. I didn't know how to take this. My grandfather didn't believe in ghosts, aliens, or cryptids. I still think about it sometimes, since my great-grandfather has passed and I still have the packing list for the hunting trip, and him and Jeremiah were supposed to go on. Hey there, crew. It's your host, CobaltTungsten, coming at you real quick. This story was posted to Reddit in r/nosleep by the user senzupeeen. All of the creepy soundscapes in the video were created and graciously provided by the ever-wonderful Miu, who you can find here on YouTube. If you have a story you would like me to check out or narrate, feel free to give me a holler to my Gmail, which will be posted on screen and in the description. Until I see all of you lovely people again, I wish you all to have good days